Hello, and welcome to this session of Talking Tech, Women and Girls in ICT. My name is Ponnila, and today I'm delighted to be having a discussion about tech and tech careers with interviewee Katharine Wolf, founder and CEO of Odetta.ai, an on-demand outsourcing platform that empowers women around the world with remote work. Talking Tech is a series celebrating girls and women in tech, and it's being recorded around the world between Girls in ICT Day 2020 and Girls in ICT Day 2022. Girls in ICT Day is an international day marked on the fourth Thursday of each April, and the objective is to help create a global environment that encourages young women to consider studies and careers in the field of ICT, which stands for Information and Communication Technologies. The Talking Tech series is brought to you by the ITU, UNICC, and the Office of the United Nations Secretary General's Envoy on Youth, and is in support of Equals, the Global Partnership for Gender and Equality in the Digital Age. Hi, Katharine. Thank you so much for joining me today.
So nice to meet you. Thank you for having me.
Yep. And to kick things off, would you mind introducing yourself a little bit to our audience and talking a bit about your current job and what it's all about?
Yes, I'm happy to do that. Hi, everyone. I am Katharine. I am founder and CEO of a company called Odetta. Odetta is a tech-enabled business process outsourcing platform. And essentially what we do is we help mostly technology companies delegate tactical recurring work to a virtually managed team that we built. And our teams are powered by highly educated women globally in regions where flexible remote work is needed most. And so that is tells you a little bit about our mission. I started the company about 4 years ago, and we were born out of a very simple insight that there are millions of superstar, educated women, especially in developing economies, who are unable to work in the kind of traditional formal labor market due to constraints that can be smartly solved with technology. And our founding statistic is that 75% of the women getting educated across the Middle East and South Asia are not participating in the workforce for a whole host of reasons. And the kind of the aha moment or the key to facilitating that is we believe building flexible asynchronous remote work. And so that's what Odetta does. And we are 4 years old. We serve around 350 tech companies all around the world. And we have around 10,000 Odettans. These are the women that are part of our community who are kind of ready to work. And of those, we have a team of around 350 women who are currently working for our technology partners.
Wow, that's amazing. So I was a little bit curious on how you started out in this industry. So could you share a little bit about your foundation in technology and what influenced you as a young girl to pursue the career in tech that you currently have?
Yeah, well, I wish I had started out as a young girl. I actually started out in non-tech. And I got a foundation in finance. I was an investment banker straight from undergrad. I did study math, and so in that way, kind of was interested in STEM. But really, my I guess kind of like what I was thinking about at that time was how do you bring finance to people who didn't have access? And so my through line, or even in how I think about tech now, has always been okay, like what currently exists and how can we use technology to help extend that to pools of people that don't have access? And so I had started a bank for women in Southeast Asia that was actually non-tech. Now it is kind of driven more by tech. And then I had worked at a technology company where I was in the sales side of things, but I got really inspired by that company to learn how to build a technology company and how to work with developers and how to piece it all together and build a product and how to serve the tech industry in general. So I would say kind of like late late joiner, but it really is kind of like behind everything that we do. And so it's, yeah, I'm really happy to be, deep in the industry.
Yeah, that's interesting because finance, fintech now is so big. So
Yeah.
it's interesting that you made that transition
Yeah.
so smoothly.
Wait, so how about you? When did you get into technology? I also would love to know what do you like most about the industry? Kind of like what attracted you to it? And it could have been like when you were a young girl. It could be now. But yeah, curious about your influences.
So I'm also like you. I started out in a non-tech field. I was on the pre-med track.
Mm.
So in high school, I was volunteering at hospitals and nursing homes and things like that. And then when I got to college, I was majoring in biology on the pre-med track. And then I got a little, and I was like, this isn't really for me. So I took a coding class over the summer because I have a lot of people around me in my community who are in technology. So I'm surrounded by it all the time. So I was curious, maybe this is something I want to do. So I took a coding class over the summer, ended up really liking it. So changed my major to computer science. But I think the thing that attracted me the most to this industry is that it sort of envelops every aspect of our lives now. Technology is everywhere because, I mean, everything from healthcare to infrastructure to environmental science, politics, even art now is run by technology, and it's such a huge influence on everything we do nowadays. So I realized that having this knowledge in my arsenal is very valuable, regardless of what industry I might go into in the future, because it opens a lot of doors and it's capable of a lot of change. And there's so much innovation happening all the time, and it's always changing and evolving, which I found really interesting. So that was the main reason that I was attracted to it.
Yeah, incredible. That's a great transition story.
So in your academic and your professional background so far, would you say that there is a challenge that you faced that was sort of a formative learning experience and something that guided you in your tech experience so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's always an interesting question. So many challenges faced, and that's always good because it makes for more growth. I think the kind of the I guess because we're focused on girls in tech, I'd probably share some experiences around stereotypes I've had, and like almost anyone who is from an underrepresented group, it is something that you face kind of regularly, where you don't look like the people who are hiring you, and you may not sound like what someone expects of kind of what they're expecting that person to be like. And therefore, before you're able to prove yourself, you are often kind of like either misunderstood or underestimated. And it's a great feeling of kind of like being not listened to or not accepted. And I think that for me was I wouldn't say my first experience, because my first experience was very much like studying math early on. But I remember I had just become a CEO of a healthcare company, and I kept on being told that I was just not data oriented enough in how I speak. Background in math. I had a kind of like a master's degree in econometrics, but I was not data oriented enough in how I speak. I remember I was at a company where I really was running the sales team. And yet I was told, you're too soft, not aggressive enough for us to be the head of sales. So we'll have someone else who's kind of like the head of sales, and you could do all of the work. I remember being told that I was too feminine in my approach or how I was presenting myself or even how I led my company to raise venture capital. And so those are just everyday things that happen all the time that everyone faces. And there's no question about whether that exists. But I think for me, one of the guiding, I guess, influences or maybe insights learned around that was those are the moments for you to either say, I accept myself and these are my superpowers, or I choose to change myself to what they want. And I would like to suggest, and not that I always did this, but that if someone could have told me earlier on, just to stay as you are, be the quiet, confident developer who runs teams of hundreds of people, because I think the most authentic you are to your core person, the most likely you are to reach your goals. And then, but actually, like, more important behind that is by staying who you are and speaking your truth and representing your minority and having the traits that come with that, whether they're learned or unlearned. I think that you're going to demonstrate to more people who need to see that you can be that person, you can be that quiet head of sales, and be amazing at it. And so more people can see themselves in you. And then when you hold true to who you are, you're actually empowering all of those people. And so that's something that, I would probably say I've learned over time.
Yeah, I definitely relate a lot to that because I've found that, the quality of the work isn't necessarily equivalent to how loud you are or, how outspoken you are at meetings. It's not necessarily related. So I understand that a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure. And maybe, and you might even be closer to this, like, what challenges did you encounter in your educational and professional experiences thus far that would resonate for this community?
So it's similar to what you were talking about in my educational background because I joined a little bit later than the class that was already there. I felt initially that everyone else in the room sort of knew more than I did. So I was always very reluctant to voice my opinions or, bring something to the conversation because I thought I was, not qualified enough for anything. So it was a little intimidating in that way. But I think it was a good learning lesson because coming into the professional sphere, I learned to move past that because, every opinion is very valuable because everyone brings a different perspective.
Yep.
So that's definitely a challenge that I face more in my educational career. And then I would say in my professional career, at the moment, the thing that's, running through my head a lot is in my internships and my technical rotations, I've held a variety of different positions and from data analytics to, risk and compliance. And currently I'm working in cloud. So I think going forward, I'm trying to figure out what it is I want to be doing long-term.
Yep.
So that's definitely, it's not really a problem or a challenge because it means I have a lot of choices. So I'm not complaining, but it's definitely something that I'm actively thinking about because the technology industry is so wide and there's so many things going on. So finding your place and your niche is a little difficult, especially when you're starting out. So I think that's currently my concern.
Yeah. And do you specialize or
Yeah.
stay general? Those are such good questions, I feel like.
Right. And then what you studied in school doesn't necessarily equate to what you end up doing in the professional sphere. So it's a little interesting to figure out once you get to that point. So you've accomplished some pretty amazing things in your academic and your professional careers, from attending Stanford to establishing a microfinance bank in Vietnam to founding your own startup. So is there an example of something that you worked on? Doesn't have to be one thing that you would say that you're particularly proud of?
Yeah, I thank you for that. I think I'm most proud of the company that I'm building now. for so many reasons that are just like kind of like run deep, but it feels like the most authentic thing I've done. It's definitely kind of like a mission from the heart. And I think the way that we've built it has also been amazing. It's just like it's so mission oriented with such kind of like the intentions behind it. I think have ramifications for really high impact. And so I'm proud of that. I would say on the kind of like bringing that back to working in tech. And I think this might be helpful for some people, but I've always thought about, okay, like how can I help? What skill do I have, and how can I like do something that can help people who may not have access? Because I just grew up with access and felt that I wanted to, kind of like do something with the things that I was given. And if I had been really focused on, okay, it has to be like the best technology and we need like the most incredible technologists, and I'm not saying you can't do that. Like that's awesome too, to kind of like really focus on the technology and do that. But I was really focused on how do we be useful to people? And in our technology company, at least, we decided not to build all the tech ourselves. And that's kind of like a whole separate conversation about why that is amazing and how that allows you to not require as much capital. And technology is really interesting right now because there's this whole no code movement, and like there's all this pre-built technology that I actually think an amazing skill set among people interested in technology is that of an integrator. So understanding all the different technologies that are out there and being able to piece them together. And then there's all these softwares that you can use to piece them together, and really like, and it's like super low cost. And so I think that's what's most amazing. And I guess why I'm proud of that, because to be honest, when I started the company, the word shame would be a little bit too, I was like kind of ashamed that we weren't building technology from scratch. And I was kind of embarrassed to get on the phone with venture capitalists because I was like, this isn't a real company. It's not a tech company. We're not doing XYZ. But we kind of stuck to our guns and figured out how to build a platform leveraging other people's technology that does all the same functionality that can scale, like very much scale, at like a fraction of the cost, so that we didn't have to sell off the company. And so I'm super proud of that. Like that is empowering. It's empowering to our people, to our mission, and hopefully empowering to people who are listening to this.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never thought about it that way, that it's sort of a shame that it's not built from scratch. It just shows you that there's, more than one way to do something. So
yeah.
so tying back into some of the things you were talking about before, in your opinion, going forward, what area do you think the tech industry should be giving more attention to?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to say there. I think I always kind of start with that 80% of the world lives hand to mouth in survival mode. And so when you think about all of those people who are living today, and many, many people who are going to be living in the future, who aren't sitting in a position to be able to have a conversation like this, or even think about how do I use my skills to make or change the world, or have no decisioning power whatsoever. When I go back to that mindset, which I do all of the time, I just think about kind of like replication and delivery and scaling of existing tools, so that very large pool of people can have the basic rights to fulfill their potential. And a lot of people might be like, oh, well, like we got to build like the future of AI and all of that, and it's an arms race. And I just think I think those of us who are in a position to scale technology, that should be our focus. And probably that's very much like people oriented, but then you could go into the environment that is supporting them, and obviously climate change, and like there's so much there. I would say then, like, if that were done, then there's a lot of things that I would be excited to do that are like super futuristic and, kind of like much more around empowering many voices to build those solutions. But yeah, that's where I would start. And that's super vague, but I will say, if you look at almost every technology company that is getting built, and you look at the accelerators, and kind of like the theses behind them, most companies are not focused on this population. They're focused on the people who pay. So I think it is important to kind of like redirect there.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I think a lot of the time what you read in the media or what you see, on social media is it's always focused on like the glitz and the glam of like the new thing that's coming out, and and it's not always focused on giving back to the communities that would really benefit from this. So I love that. It's an interesting point.
And it's like, why not build businesses that are serving communities? And like, why not use technology to be able to do that better? And, it doesn't have to be political. And there's so much stuff you can do with that as well. But I'm more curious in what you think, in your opinion, going forward. What areas should the tech industry be giving more attention to? And like, why did you kind of like think of that?
Yeah, so I think the problem that I've been hearing about the most from people of my generation or younger, I mean, there's many, but the one that stands out to me the most is the issue of climate change. And the tech industry, I think, has a huge potential to make a difference in the area. It's sort of like a make or break difference on this issue going forward because of what I was talking about previously, in that tech can, impact so many critical areas, especially when it comes to something like sustainability, because you can use it with transportation, with energy, with recycling, carbon capture, or even something as, people oriented as assisting in the coordination of like relief efforts for populations affected with climate disasters or anything of that sort. So I think because the private sector and technology has been such a driver of economic and social change in the last few decades, if the leadership of this industry really commits to sustainability, I think it could make a huge difference in the near future. Because I mean, in the recent years, we see so many conversations surrounding this topic. So I think going forward, this is an area that could use a lot of attention, especially from technology.
Yeah, 100%. Like, yes, agree.
Yeah. It's a huge conversation that,
yeah,
I could talk about it for days, but anyways.
I hope you
so, switching a little bit to this conversation surrounding girls and women in technology. Is there a particular piece of advice that you would give, especially to the young girls who are maybe just starting out in this industry, on advice on their education or careers in tech?
Yeah, we get a lot of these, a lot of our community are technologists, and they're trying to figure out like similar to what you were talking about. It's like what to pick, like what technologies to start with, like, or where do I start? Kind of, and a lot of it is around like, which one should I go into? So I probably have two things. I think on that, I might focus more on like, what are you naturally drawn to? And like kind of like try a bunch of things, because there's so many online resources, and be like, this is the one that I find most exciting, or I'll stay up until 3 a.m. doing. And like, I wouldn't just pick like, read some research paper and be like, this one's gonna boom. I would really go inside and be like, this lights me up. And because if it does, like, you'll be so much better than everyone else, and you'll be able to like drive the way, and you'll have all your you won't have to solve for motivation, which is what a lot of people have to solve for. So kind of like a broad exposure, and then kind of like figure out which one interests you. And let's say none of them do. That's okay, because it doesn't mean that you're not interested in tech. It just means that it might, you might like need to work with a really great set of people and see how they interact with it. Because sometimes like taking these online courses, you're just like, it's so far-fetched and it's not like anything. And so the next step would be, kind of like cold outreach to a bunch of people on LinkedIn and just like have some conversations and meet some mentors and then try to join them pro bono or whatever. And they'll guide you and you'll find your way. And for some people it's really fast and some people it's really long, but I just like, I wouldn't focus on like research reports and stats and like, I would have maybe a bunch of conversations. The second piece of advice that's just like so dear to my heart is not listening to not overly listening to what people say about you, about your strengths and weaknesses, because I think a lot of times people get that wrong. They'll be like, oh, you're really good at this, or your weakness is that. And so instead I would, again, go inside and be like, you know what, like, this is something that lights me up. I really think this is my strength. And I am a big believer in focusing on your natural strengths, as opposed to trying to like do something and get better at like your weaknesses. I would just drop all those, surround yourself with people who can do those. And then kind of the attitude of proving people wrong, not accepting what they say. And that's so much easier for me to say now after having like, sitting here having overcome like so much like self-doubt around each different area. But yeah, I think if that's like one thing I could give advice to someone who's just starting out is like that. I wish I could give them like that, the ability to just like kind of like go inside, be like, this is what I'm excited about, and also believe in myself that I can do this, and really kind of like be consistent and hold that. And so yeah, but I would like to ask you similarly, just because I'm generationally and just in general, what would you say to a young girl starting out in tech?
Well, going from my experiences, I would say just don't be intimidated by how much technology keeps changing, because that's just the nature of, how it is compared to even when I was like in elementary school versus now. The environment looks so different, and it's not a bad thing. And change is, inevitable. So I would just say keep learning, because it's going to keep changing always. There's nothing we can do about it. So there's no point being, intimidated by that in any way. But on the other side of that, I would say sometimes, change isn't always a good thing. And we have to learn to, especially as young people coming in, we have to learn to question everything that we see, whether it's ethical, how it's being done. We have to be willing to do the research and ask those questions and question authority when it needs to be questioned, because when things move at such a rapid pace, sometimes people just, accept it and go on. And like we were talking about before, sometimes things get either political or people, just go where the money is. And a lot of like communities get left behind, or a lot of problems don't get addressed. So I would say don't be afraid of change, and also question it when you see it, just to make sure that it's ethical and it's positive and it's doing good.
Amazing.
Yep. So that was.
You're amazing. I'm very.
Oh, thank you.
For all the people that you're going to mentor.
Yep. Yeah. I feel like I have a few years of experience, but I'm still feel like I'm just starting out. So I'm like somewhere in the nether regions of, I don't know if I'm a professional yet, but I'm not a student. So I'm like in that middle ground.
Yeah, but it's like what I think kind of like the future is, you're always just starting out because everything changes. And so like just getting comfortable in that space. And that's such an amazing place to be, because you're going to kind of challenge all of the different assumptions and be learning, and then, and then kind of moving on to the next thing. So I think it's a great place to be. You'll be
Thank you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your no doubt very busy schedule to come talk to me. It was such a pleasure. I loved interviewing you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.